Dr. Richard, and today what we're going to do is learn a little bit about the SPSS work environment. And so what I've done is I've pulled up a brand new SPSS file. There's no data entered, there are no variables defined. And really what I want to do is just show you the environment for SPSS. There's so much here in SPSS that I can't possibly show you everything. And in fact, all I really want to do in this video is just show you the menu systems and then how SPSS organizes the data view and the variable view. And then we'll just run a real quick analysis so I can show you the output. And that'll sort of walk you through the sequence of how things are done in SPSS. So let's start with the menu up top. And you'll see it looks like a typical menu. You have a file drop down. You can start new files here. You can open files. You can import data from Excel, comma delimited files that will be read by SPSS. And there's a lot of options there. There's also an edit menu. You can undo and redo. You can insert variables and cases within the data set, which in this spreadsheet here looks a lot like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's a little different. You'll see that in just a moment. There are also ways to manipulate your data, sort your data, transpose data, and so forth. That's under the data menu. And then transforming data, you can, for example, take a variable that has data in one value, change it to another value. That's called computing a variable. You can recode the data. There's all sorts of things you can do there. But really the meat of SPSS is this menu right here under Analyze. This is where you're going to go to run the statistics that you'd like to run for this course. So descriptive statistics here, frequencies, descriptives, explore, crosstabs, comparing means we'll be talking about over the course of the semester. One sample t-test, independent samples t-test, a one-way ANOVA. Under correlate and regression, we have all of the routines that we'll use there. And then you can start getting into some other things that we probably won't talk so much about. For example, under dimension reduction, factor analysis, that's really a graduate level sort of analysis. We will be looking at some of the reliability analyses in this course and some of the non-parametric tests. So all of the analyses that you'll be running will be under here. There's also some graph functions. We'll touch on those and some other utilities that are within the program as well, but we'll skip over those for now. Now the way SPSS is set up is in two kinds of views, data view and variable view. And if there were data here, it would be showing up, but we don't have any data entered. We need to define our variables first. So we click on variable view, and let's enter in here a few variables, and we'll say subject ID. So this will be the ID number for our subjects, and then it gives us a number of choices here in terms of what kind of data. And a subject ID is really not a variable that we're going to analyze, right? It just identifies which subject we're talking about within the data set. So I'm just going to call this a string, which also means text variable. So a string variable, we'll give it a maximum length of 8 characters. That's fine. And there you go. So now it's set up. Now if I go back to data view, you'll notice subject ID shows up in the first column. So the next variable will go in the second column. So let's say height is our next variable, and then we're going to enter in weight, numeric, okay? Now the width here just means essentially the number of digits that can be entered into this particular variable. And we're going to do height in inches, so we'll just say this is worth 2 digits. Whoops. I have to change the number of decimals down to 0. Let's just say we're going to do it in whole numbers, so we'll say 2. And then in weight, we'll do 3 digits. And we won't do half pounds or anything like that. We'll just put in the whole number, okay? Now in the printout, the output, I may want to call it height with a capital H and then weight with a capital W. So label refers to the output and what you want this particular variable to look like in the output. For now, we're going to skip over values and missing values. SPSS allows you to enter in a code in this missing column, a code that allows you to identify when data are missing from a data set. And that tells SPSS to skip over that particular row in the data file during analysis. For values, we're going to skip this for now. Although, you know what, let me show you how this would work. Let's add in here sex, and we're going to say this is a numeric variable. We're going to code men as a 2 and women as a 1. So I'm going to set this up here, and this is biological sex. Okay, now that I have that set up, let's go in here into values, and I click on values, and I say, okay, a value of 1 means, instead of saying woman, let's say female. Add 2 is male. Add, and so that'll tell SPSS what those values mean. Okay. And now we're going to go to actually entering the data. So let's say 001, 002, 003. I'm just entering in the subject ID numbers. So if we were actually running a data set, these would be the identifiers. So as researchers, we know who we were talking about. And let's say that height here, let's say 60 inches. That would be someone who's 5 feet tall. 63, 65, 67, 62, 50. Yeah, we'll go up to 70. 59, 65, 64, and 67. Okay? And now we'll say, let's say that the sex here, biological sex, these are all females, these are all males. Okay, because remember we coded males as a 2, females as a 1. Now let's go to weight. And again, we're just sort of making things up. Female weight, someone who's 5 feet tall, let's say that's 101. Female whose height is 63, let's say is 107. Female height of 65, let's say 112. Let's say 112. 65 and 67, 131, 62, 110. Okay. And then we have a male who is at 70 inches tall. And let's say that that is 167, 59 inches tall, a little shorter. So we'll say 100, 65 inches tall, we'll say 123, 64 inches tall, 128, and then 67, let's say 149. Okay, now, so we have now, this is our data set. It is a completely artificial fake data set, but we're going to run an analysis on it anyway. So let's just find the correlation between height and weight. So we click correlate, bivariate, and we pick our variables from our list of variables here. Here's weight, here's biological sex. Oh, we're going to put that back, I'm sorry, and height. Okay, so weight and height. And I'm going to skip over all these other options here. We're going to talk about those more in the course. So let's just see an output for now. So I click on output, and up it comes. And what we find is that there's a correlation of 0.91 between height and weight. Not surprisingly, because we were sort of stacking the deck there, right, to make a high correlation. So this is what an output looks like. It gives us the syntax first. This is the actual code that SPSS uses, or script, that SPSS uses to run the analysis. We could actually write this whole script in SPSS and run it this way as well, but we use the menu system, drop-down menus and so forth, which is more visual, easier to use. And this says correlations, and then up comes the Pearson product moment correlation, 0.91, and then the significance level, 0.000, which means it's just the likelihood that we get a correlation of this size due to chance or measurement error is less than 1 in 1,000. And then N tells us the number of observations or pairs in the data set. So there were 10 pairs of data in terms of calculating the correlation. And that's pretty much it. So what we would do in any analysis is we would start by entering in our data, and then we'd select the analysis we're going to want to run, and then we would write it up using APA format, which I'm not going to do right now, but that would be the next step. We would write up this result, input it into our manuscript, and then that eventually would be published in a journal or turned in for a dissertation, thesis, honors paper, and so forth. So that's the work environment for SPSS, and when we get to lab, we will explore this in more detail. But I wanted to just show it to you for now as a quick initial look, and we'll come back in lab to look at it in more detail.